Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 22, Text 9, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Pitamaha me bhavadiya sammataha prahradaha avishkrita sadhu vadaha bhavat vipakshena vichitra vaishasam samprapitaha tvam paramaha svapitra pitamaho me bhavadiya sammata prahrado avishkrita sadhuvadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam samprapitastvang paramah svapitra pitamaho me bhavadiya sammata prahrada avishkrita sadhuvadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam samprapitastvang paramah svapitra Vishkrita sadhuvadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam samprapitastvang paramah sapitra pitamaho me bhavadiya sammata prahrada avishkrita sadhuvadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam pitamaho me bhavadiya sammata parada avishkrito sambhavadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam Sambhavitas tvam paramasva pitra. Ladies, pamaho me bhavadiya sammata prarada avishkrita sadhuvadaha bhavadvipakshena vichitra vaishasam samprapitas tvang paramasa pitra. Pitamaha, grandfather. Me, my. Bhavadiya, sammataha, approved by the devotees of your lordship. Prahladaha, Prahlad Maharaj. Avishkrita, sadhu, vadaha, famous, being celebrated everywhere as a devotee. Bhavat vipakshena, simply going against you. Vichitra vaishasam, inventing different kinds of harassments. Samprapitaha, suffered. Tvam, you. Paramaha, the supreme shelter. Svapitra, by his own father. My grandfather Prahlada Maharaj is famous, being recognized by all your devotees. Although harassed in many ways by his father Hiranyakashipu, he still remained faithful, taking shelter at your lotus feet. Purport. A pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj, although harassed circumstantially in many ways, never gives up the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of anyone else. A pure devotee never complains against the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A vivid example is Prahlad Maharaj. Examining the life of Prahlad Maharaj, we can see how severely he was harassed by his own father, Hiranyakashipu. Yet he did not divert his attention from the Lord even to the smallest extent. Bali Maharaj, following in the footsteps of his grandfather Prahlad Maharaj, remained fixed in his devotion to the Lord despite the Lord's having punished him. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurimilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shreshtham Manam Api Shachiputram Atraswarupa Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupuring Matarim Goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the verses we discussed yesterday came the term Vaira Anubandhena, And yesterday I discussed the difference between anubandha and sambandha. The connection which comes about through enmity, and the relationship, complete relationship that comes through love. Sambandha gives the idea of completely tied up. Bandhana means being tied up. We'll see in this chapter that Bali Maharaj literally got tied up by Vamandev, actually by Garuda with the agency of Varuna. Indra couldn't tie up Bali. Bali could tie up Indra. Varuna Vamanadev. Vamanadev can tie the whole world up. He does tie the whole world up. Everything rests in him. He's in control of everything. But he specifically wanted to tie up Bali Maharaj. Who will he come to tie up? Who will he personally come to tie up? Someone who has tied him up within his heart. Because Bali's real desire was to give his heart to Vishnu. He was king of the universe, but his heart wasn't in it. He was doing his duty, but really his heart was stolen, taken away. This Prahlad, he had this bad habit throughout his life from the demon's point of view of contaminating the demons. Even from his very childhood, and even as an old man, he had this habit of contaminating the children. And his own grandson, he didn't even spare his own grandson. You'd think he'd leave his own grandson, leave him in peace, but he didn't. And if he had not imparted Krishna consciousness to Bali, Bali might have had a much more peaceful life. And then he wouldn't have attracted the mercy of Vamanadev. He wouldn't have got tied up by Vamanadev. He could have ruled his kingdom very peacefully, theoretically, if there's any such thing as ruling a kingdom peacefully. We do see such statements in Shastra, although the king is always in anxiety. Who is he most anxious about? More than anyone, his own ministers, the people who are closest to him. He can't even eat without being, he can't even eat in peace. He has to give the food to someone else first. You never know. The minister, he may, after serving him for 20 years, conspire to give him poison. So Prahlad, it seemed that he was giving poison to Bali. And Srila Prabhupada sometimes used that kind of term. The Krishna conscious poison has entered, and now it will work. You can't stop it. The infection. He used to quote about this infection. Now the whole world is overrun, or we're told that it's overrun by the coronavirus. But the whole world, we want to, when we see that the Krishna consciousness is spreading as widely as coronavirus, then we'll think we're beginning to do quite well. We've got a long way to go. But why did Prahlad do this? It's going to be troublesome for Bali. And why did Bali, having been humiliated, insulted, and it's not over yet, he's about to be tied up. There's more, and then thrown down to hell. There's worse to come yet. Worse to come, better to come. Why was he happy to be tied up by Vamanadev? Because he understood this is all the mercy of Prahlad. Prahlad was Pitamaha. He mentions him here as his grandfather. But the relationship between Prahlad and Bali, it wasn't a bodily relationship. That could be called anubandha. Some kind of, it's not really, You're not really tied up. That's there, isn't it? The pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayoraho hridaya grantimaho. We're tied up. Our heart is tied up with the knots of desire for loving in a male-female relationship. But it's temporary. Whereas the permanent relationship is with Krishna, a love relationship of love. And Bali and Prahlad, they are eternally related, with the center being Vishnu, Krishna. This is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, that both Prahlad and Bali preach by their very lives. They both had Dhanam, Janam, Sundari. They had wealth, followers, all the beautiful women in the world at their disposal. They were glorified, they had name and fame, but they weren't interested in it. They lived to love Krishna. They thought it was more important. In fact, they didn't see anything as important except love for Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, Prem bina beta hoy, daridra jiban, dash kare betan more deho prema dhan. Prem don bina beta daridra jiban. Without this wealth, the real wealth of love of Krishna, life, what is the use? It's actually a poverty-stricken life. And the real goal of life is to live for the love of Krishna, to establish oneself, to be accepted as a servant of Krishna, and to accept the payment of love of Krishna, to beg for the payment of love of Krishna. So this is the whole message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the message of the Vedas, the purpose of life is to live for love. But we should know what that love is. No doubt, Hiranyakashipu had love for Prahlad. He was very affectionate toward it. Until Prahlad manifested his Krishna consciousness. No doubt Virochan had love for Bali, but Bali didn't we don't find Bali praising Virochana, his father. His real relationship was with his grandfather. So this is the missing point. In everything, the whole of material existence, the Buddhists, certain Buddhists, we call them Shunyavadi. And we agree, the whole material world, there's nothing. But we are also Ekavadi, put a one at the beginning. Put Krishna and your massive accumulation of zeros becomes very valuable. We see at the present time present time, I'm talking about life in the material world at the present time, but at this present moment, I am speaking to all of you, and there's a camera sitting in front of me, and this will go out on the YouTube also. And what do people live for? They live on the YouTube, and all unlimited entertainment, whatever you're interested in, or even if you're not interested in, all kinds of unlimited entertainment in all languages. That's a very good example. It's like the epitome of the graphic example of how material life cannot satisfy us, because we'd think that something in the material world can satisfy us. And YouTube, Netflix, and all this kind of thing, it must be something that we're interested in. Recently I was on my lie down. While everyone was having the lockdown, I was lying down. So I thought, well, maybe there's something interesting on Netflix, some documentary. Netflix, and the other one is Prime Video. Right. So I looked through, and I couldn't find anything interesting. There's something, maybe something about Einstein, something might be useful in preaching, but I'm happy to say I didn't find anything that inspired me enough to watch it. Although I have seen in the past some historical, I must admit. Some historical things, but it gets boring. Watching history means someone killing someone else, and then they retaliate, and it goes on like that. So the proof that the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are true is that even with unlimited entertainment, that doesn't substitute for love in the heart, which is what everyone really wants. There's no fulfillment in the titillation of the senses. People live on the internet, but they don't really live at all. What is their life? Maybe there's a Guinness Book of World Records, who's watched the most YouTube videos. What a distinction. And there's a competition. You've watched 10,000,001, and then it comes up on YouTube, on the news. 10,000,002. And then someone comes, 10,000,003. I've got to start all over again. What is that life? There's no life. Prana Cheta, the Vrajavasis, the residents of Vrindavan, they have life because Krishna is their life. The message of Srimad Bhagavatam is love, but not this, what is conceived of as love. What people think of as love, you cry some tears. Yes, in pure love of Krishna, definitely there's crying tears. Nayanam Galadashu Dharaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us that we should aspire for that time when our eyes are flooded with tears of love of Krishna. But it's not some sentimental, fuzzy feeling. He looks in her eyes. She looks in his eyes. Someone starts playing a violin. That's all right for Barbara Cartland novels. The novels which are very popular among women of romantic stories. But real life is more like an Agatha Christie novel. I don't know if you're aware. It's a detective story, very, very complex, and all based on violence. Real life is more like that. They're both super smash hit English authors of light novels, time pass novels. Both one centers on so-called love, and the other one centers on some imaginary murders. But real love is not this fuzzy feel. I feel he looks in her eyes, she looks in his eyes. Then they love each other, and then real life. Get out, get some money. Yeah, and then sometimes there's dancing in the kitchen floor also. But the real thing is you've got to go out and sweat and bring some money in. But we do long for that, for love, but we really miss the point when we try to repose it in anything and anyone but Krishna and his devotees. And real love means it's not that I want to have this nice feeling in me, but real love means we have to work, we have to serve Krishna, we have to surrender to Krishna, Crying, yeah, that's good. Cry for Krishna. We should aspire to cry for Krishna. But it's not that we just sit around all day and cry. We've got some work to do also. What is that love? The giving oneself fully to Krishna. Is the previous chapter of this Bhagavatam has been entitled Bali Maharaj surrenders the universe. And then this chapter, you think he surrendered the universe. Okay, that's it. He's given everything, but there's something more. This chapter is called Bali Maharaj surrenders his life. And that's what Vamana came to get. Superficially, he came to get the universe, the heavenly planets especially, to give back to Indra. But actually that's his duty, you can say. Because he said in Bhagavad Gita that Paritranaya sadhunam, and in the Bhagavatam, Ete changsa kalapung, before that becomes Indrari vyakalam lokam hridayanti yuga yuga. He comes to, when the enemies of Indra cause Indra too much headache, then he comes. So he comes, it's his duty. But really, he didn't go to think, I'm going to go and get the universe. His real interest was, I'm going to go and get Bali. He's in this big illusion that he's the king. Okay, I'm going to go and tie him up. Bring him back to me. So we can pray also to Krishna. We have to be very qualified to get tied up by Krishna. To be personally tied up by Krishna. And even more qualified to tie up Krishna. Who ties up Krishna? Yashoda and the gopis. That's less well known. That they also tie him up sometimes. But we can pray to Krishna that I'm trying, I don't know, you drag me, pull me. I shouldn't pray like this, but what other hope do I have? You come and get me. So he does. He comes as Bhagavatam, as Guru, as Vaishnavas, to drag us to him. But we have to be willing also. He tied up Bali to show Bali, you are mine. What are you doing? All this nonsense, being a king. Unimpressive. Vaman Dev is not impressed. He's got millions of universes. Like the example is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita of a whole bag of mustard seeds. So if you take one mustard seed and said, I am the king of this mustard seed. No, I'm totally in control of this mustard seed. And there's someone, he's the wholesaler of mustard seeds. He has a whole go-down full of sacks of mustard seeds, and someone comes and says, I am the proprietor of this mustard seed. It's not very impressive to Vamana. But he wanted to get Bali and show him, you are mine, you're not going anywhere, I've got you under control. Tied up. Tied up by love. So in this way, the Vamana, his mercy on Bali, it is a precursor. All the different avatars, they're all showing their mercy, but Parama Karuna Pahunduijana Nitai Gaura Chandra, the most merciful, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, they're the most merciful because they are prema datta. They give prem. Qualified, not qualified. Practically speaking, to be unqualified seems to be more of a qualification. Because he comes in Kali Yuga, we're all unqualified. Just a little qualification, one has to be open to accept that. And then he comes with his weapons. What is his weapon? His beauty It just somehow he wants to attract us to him and bring us to him. To bring us to him, how is that? By re-establishing the relationship of love. Krishna prema pradayate. By giving love of Krishna, he liberates the whole universe from the illusory love that binds us in this world. We're tied up in this world. We may think that Bali Maharaj was tied up, but now he's free. He was tied up previously by thinking, I am the king, these are my subjects. Now he's free from the bondage of thinking I am the king of the universe. And he's tied up in love for Krishna. One way or the other we have to be tied up. We can't avoid, because we are tiny living beings. We're not independent. The king Bali was thinking, I am the independent ruler. We used to hear in the British time, when the British were ruling, we used to hear about the independent king of this and that. The independent king of Tripura. It used to be said, especially he was famous in the history of the Gauriya Math. But independent means it was only theoretical independence. They had a British advisor at the court. The advisor means he tells you what to do. The king is independent, but the advisor tells him what to do. That's all. And he has some measure of independence to make, and he can say he's independent. But if he goes against what the British want him to do, then his name will enter the history book in the past tense. So this love that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to give, it's nothing that we can really understand as long as we are in the illusion of thinking that there is love in this world. What is love? Why do you love? Why do you love Krishna? Why do you want to love Krishna? There's no real reason. It's not something, everything has a cause, right? No. We say love has a cause. There are incitements for love of Krishna. The sound of Krishna's flute, his land of Vrindavan, his beauty, Dhira Samira, the gentle breeze blowing, especially in the autumn season with the full moon rising. These are all udipanas, inspirations for love of Krishna. But scientifically speaking, there's no reason why the full moon should induce love in anyone, or why there should be love at all. What's the reason? Why? Why? There's no answer. Love, that's all. Finished. There's nothing more to say. You can't analyze it scientifically. It's just, that's it. Just as Krishna is independent, he doesn't have to answer to anyone. So love is also, it's an independent principle. It's not caused. Real love means, why do you love Krishna? Why do you want to serve Krishna? There's no reason. You don't want anything back. Na dhanam, na janam, na sun. Why are you chanting Hare Krishna? What are you going to get money out of it? You're going to get popularity out of it? You're going to get name and fame out of it? You're going to get beautiful women? No. What do you want? You want to be tied up? Yeah, it's stupid. But no. That's love. He wants to tie me up. Aslishyava padaratam pinashtam amadarshanan marmahatam karotu yata tata va vidhatu lamparto mat prananatas evanapara. Whatever he wants to do. He wants to kiss me, embrace me. Fine. That's what I want. Wants to trample me underfoot. Okay. It's what he wants. It makes him happy. All right. Doesn't want to show himself to me. All right, if that's what he wants. I'm crying, but if he's happy, then let him. Anyway, he's my Lord. There's in all circumstances. Even people may say he's the worst person. And we don't discuss openly about Krishna's intimate love pastimes because people say he's the worst person. And if you examine by worldly standards, he is the worst person. In some ways. But love, why? The whole Bhagavatam is the summit philosophy of Vedanta, which is the summit of all knowledge. And we bring the tools of Nyaya, logic, Mimamsa, linguistic analysis to try to understand. But Krishna can't be found by Nyaya or by Mimamsa. Krishna can be found in the bushes of Vrindavan. Does it make sense? No. Is it nonsense? No. It's the most sensible thing of all. But it goes beyond sense. I was just discussing the other day with Maheshwara Prabhu in California. What is this? There's the Star Trek. Star Trek. Okay, now we're going to talk about Star Trek. What's it going to do with Krishna consciousness? I'll tell you. There's the two main characters, Mr. Spock and Captain Kirk. Mr. Spock is very logical. And Captain Kirk is he seems to be very impulsive. But Mr. Spock always gets everything wrong. And Captain Kirk always gets things right. That's one of the subplots of Star Trek. And he didn't bother what Star Trek is. But it's just, even the karmis have some insight. You can understand that there's some... The logic behind it is that logic doesn't always work. That it's a universe full of feelings. It's not just logic. The impersonalists and the gross materialistic scientists want to reduce everything just to analysis. There are chemicals, and there are subatomic particles, and there are waves. Everything is just waves of energy. But there's love. There are feelings. At least in this world, there's the perverted reflection of love. And you can't explain that. There's no way you can say the scientists are going to explain it. Yeah, when some certain chemical enters your brain or some hormone and this gets stimulated in a certain part of the brain, and then you have a loving feeling. That doesn't explain love. You may say this is the apparatus by which one gets such a feeling. But it doesn't explain. By taking psychotropic drugs, you can have what seems to be a spiritual experience. But that doesn't explain the experience. Or why there's anyone at all to experience that experience. So Bhagavatam is tattva jnana, knowledge of the ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is love, exchange of love. And why? Then the whole question why stops. Achintya. You have to accept something is any philosophy you take, any realm of knowledge that you enter into, which is beyond the gross, you have to say it's inconceivable. You can try and reduce everything to mathematical formulae, but it doesn't explain why we even have the urge to reduce everything to mathematical formulae, and why the universe works on numbers anyway. It seems to. We say that the world runs on love, and they say the universe runs on numbers. But why? Why? Desire. I'm saying the universe runs on love. It runs on desire. Aparayamitastranyang prakritim vidhime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. The jivas are the superior energy, superior to matter, the living force, and they keep the universe. They support the universe in the sense that the universe is there for all the jivas. Why is that? It's because of desire. The world runs on desire. Why is there desire? This David Chalmers' hard question. What is it that what is that entity or principle that experiences? And they'll never find out by the analytic method, because simply by analysis one cannot find out what is the jiva, what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They cannot understand. So why do we love? Why ultimately, why? There's no answer. You love, why? Because you love, that's all. Why do we cultivate devotional service? We may say to get out of this material world, which is full of suffering, to go to Krishna, which is full of bliss. But when one's on the platform of love, there's no question. You don't think, why I'm doing this? I want to get happiness. Even to think I will get happiness, that is, then it's not love. It's enigmatic. It's enigmatic in as much as we want to develop love for Krishna because we know this material world is miserable. We become happy by serving Krishna, but then if we think, I want to become happy, then love gets turned off. We get cut off from that love. We have the example of Daruka fanning Krishna and trembling with ecstatic feelings and thinking, oh, stop these ecstatic feelings. I can't serve. I'm supposed to be fanning Krishna, but now I'm getting so ecstatic I can't fan. So subdue. Don't be ecstatic. Subdue it all. Don't show that, or don't even feel it, because then I can't serve Krishna properly. So that's real, and that love is so powerful that it conquers Krishna. Krishna here, Vamana tied up Bali, but in doing so, Vamana indirectly declared that he is tied up by Bali, that he loves Bali, that he who is the proprietor of a huge go-down of mustard seed universes, he's come in one particular universe for one particular jiva, not because he's the king of the universe, but because his love had attracted Krishna. Shri Krishna Karshani. Bhakti can attract Krishna. Is the amazing power of love, that he who is unconquerable, jichatitopi apitaistri lokyam, he can be conquered by no means other than this. This selfless love in which one can establish a relationship of direct love with Krishna. It's unimaginable. How great is Krishna? How small are we? If there's a mustard seed, you won't even notice it. And what to speak if there's a whole universe and there's one little jiva within it, you won't notice the jiva. How small are we? The word infinitesimal. It is the best description of our situation. And the description of Krishna, infinite. But the infinite, out of his infinite mercy, his infinite love, desires to have a relationship of love with the jiva. He's ready to reciprocate. So that is inconceivable. Why? Because he has infinite love. Why does he have infinite love? This why question, you can go on questioning. There's no end to it. At some point you have to stop. We find in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, who was that? Gargi questioning Yagyavalkya. What is the essence of this? And then Yajnavalkya explains. And what's the essence of that? And then he explains. And what's the essence of that? And she goes, there's no end. But he didn't come to the point. Yajnavalkya, not in this conversation. He didn't come to the point, look, just shut up and chant Hare Krishna. He just told her to shut up, but he didn't tell her to chant Hare Krishna. But you go on questioning, there's no end. At some point, you have to say, well, what do you really want? What do we really want? We don't know. Therefore, we get confused when we look at YouTube. And what I really want, there are so many things out there. Where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? He's all attractive. That will attract us. Everything on YouTube has some attraction. Well, if you put something out, there may be something with 0 views after 25 years or so. I don't think it's been going on that long, but someone will look. At least the person who posted it will look at it just to make themselves feel happy. There's 1 view. Someone will be attracted. You see, even if no one else is attracted, you'll be attracted to yourself. What's the most attractive thing for a materialist? Is a mirror. Well, especially for young women, maybe not for old women. They may prefer not to look at it. They prefer to look at a photo album from 50 years back, imagining that they're the body. But Krishna, that's the same question comes up. It's one of those two, Chandogya or Brihadaranyaka. That why do we love, why are we interested in ourselves? Why? The same question comes up in the Bhagavatam. Why are we attracted to ourselves? Why do we love ourselves? Because ultimately we are part and parcel of Krishna. Of course, the Bhagavatam explains it more precisely. We're all interested in ourselves because we are part and parcel of Krishna. We love someone else for our own sake. But ultimately we love Krishna. That gets turned around in the Bhagavatam. That brought to its full fruition. That we love for Krishna's sake. And that is real love. Loving ourselves, that's not real love. And we have to know who we are meant to love. Who real love is, where love is to be deposited. The basis of love, the depository of love. And that means, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. Even we don't want anything. What will I get from this? Or how the whole of material life is sankalpa, vikalpa, accepting something, rejecting something, trying to get something which we want and avoiding something that we don't want. And that's the whole of material life. It goes on like that. But in love, there's no such consideration. Whether I want it, but the consideration is, will Krishna want it? What does Krishna want? For Krishna's sake, we should be prepared to accept all kinds of troubles. And Krishna becomes very pleased on seeing that Mahaprabhur Bhaktagon Vairagya Pradhan Jaha Dekhi Pritahon Gaura Bhagavan, in relation to the great trouble taken for the sake of Gopal by Madhavendra Puri. Krishnadas Kaviraj comments that prominent in the lives of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is detachment from this world, manifested as being prepared to do anything for Krishna. And seeing that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very satisfied. So it's simply giving oneself to Krishna. There's neither desire nor aversion in this material world. We're trying to get something which we want and trying to avoid something we don't want. There's a lot of discussion about this in Bhagavad Gita. Na shochati, na kangshati, person who's on the Brahmabhuta platform, the spiritual platform, neither laments for something that he's lost, nor hankers to gain something. Sukhe dukhe same kritva. He does everything, does his duty in happiness or distress. This is generally taken as cultivating such a mentality is taken as the means to attain samatvam yoga uchyate, steadiness in mind, detachment, which is the definition of yoga. So impersonalists, they try to cultivate such a sense. But the devotees, they simply love Krishna, and then they see everything. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. I shall do everything which is favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, and I'll reject anything which is averse to that principle or militates against that principle. And in this way they automatically, whether it's pleasing to me, not pleasing to me, they automatically become sthita pragya. They automatically become fixed in intelligence, as we see Bali Maharaj, the perfect sthita pragya, Prahlad Maharaj, perfect sthita pragya, fixed in intelligence. Even when Hiranyakashipu was torturing Prahlad, his intelligence to surrender to Krishna didn't waver in the slightest. Srila Prabhupada mentions here, examining the life of Prahlad Maharaj, we can see how severely he was harassed by his own father Hiranyakashipu, yet he did not divert his attention from the Lord even to the smallest extent. And we see Bali Maharaj also now in a similar situation, in which he is humiliated, but everything is taken away from him. But, as Prabhupada writes here, Bali Maharaj, following in the footsteps of his grandfather Prahlad Maharaj, remained fixed in his devotion to the Lord, despite the Lord's having punished him. In some ways, Bali Maharaj's test was more severe than that of Prahlad Maharaj. Bali, he didn't get harassed by his father. At least we don't have any record of that, so probably there wasn't. But Prahlad was fixed in devotion, and his devotion was vindicated by the appearance of Nrsimhadev. Hiranyakashipu said, "What is all this? Vishnu's everywhere. Is he in this pillar?" There's a challenge. Yep. And then Nrsimha appeared. So Prahlad suffered so much, or was harassed so much, but he remained steady in devotion. But then Bali, he didn't have to undergo that kind of suffering, although he had to fight in battles. He didn't just gain the heavenly kingdom just by desiring it, like all these, what do they call that? Personality development and success seminars. You have to desire it. You desire, but you have to do something. And you may or may not be successful, even however strong your desire is. So Bali Maharaj, he wasn't just by saying boo to Indra that Indra ran away, but he was a very powerful king, and he fought the battles. But in one sense, his test was greater than that of Prahlad, because Vamanadev, the Supreme Lord, apparently treated him so badly. You'll think that, well, Hiranyakashipu mistreated Prahlad, and then Nrsimha rescued him from that. But then Vamana himself mistreated Bali, and he's the one we think he's the Bhakta Vatsala, he's the protector of his devotees and the friend of his devotees, and he Vamana behaved in such a way that you think, what do you want to? You want to love such a person? You surrender to God, and this is what happens. But Bali Maharaj remained fixed in his intelligence. He had firm faith in the words of Prahlad. It was counterintuitive, or it might not. He might have said to Prahlada, "Hey, you told me this Vishnu was such a great guy, and now look. Maybe it's true what all that I've always heard, that you are a traitor to the whole demon race. Now I can see it's true. You tricked me by telling me to worship Vishnu." No, he was fixed. Because the poison of love of Krishna had already entered his heart, that he understood that Vishnu's punishment is for my best benefit. And he accepted that. He didn't know how things were going to work out, but he accepted everything. Therefore we praise Bali Maharaj as a Mahajana, great personality who shows the example of how to live in this world in love of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Dante nidhaya churnakang padayane patya kritva chakaku shatametava hamravime he sadava sakala eva vihaya durat chaitanya chanda charane kurutanu ragaha vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyavicha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.